Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are just going to wait maybe 5 more minutes, Jeanne. What would you say to let more people join in?
Well, I think it's unfair to the people who are on time to have them waiting around for the people who are late. So the people who come in late will just have to miss some stuff.
Okay, sure. That sounds
Personal
fine.
philosophy.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today for our first Q&A webinar. And you are going to have a Q&A webinar with CEO of Terabyte Solutions, Jeanne Tarazevtis. If you don't know about Jeanne yet, which most of you should, she is the Fishbowl and QuickBooks expert. She has worked with Fishbowl for 10 plus years and is also a trusted partner of Fishbowl. And she's also a CPA. So Jeanne is also a top 100 QuickBooks ProAdvisor for 6 consecutive years. So if there's anyone that should be leading a Q&A about Fishbowl and QuickBooks, it's definitely Jeanne. Currently, we do not have the option for you to be unmuted. So the way we will do this question portion is you should see a question mark with a circle on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar menu. And in there, we will ask you to enter in your questions. And Jeanne will go ahead and take a look at the questions and provide her answers and feedback to those questions. So we'll go ahead and give you some time to type those questions in, and then Jeanne can take over from here.
Okay, hi, I'm Jeanne Tarazevtis, and I'm here to answer your questions. Throughout this, I am going to refer to QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Enterprise as QBD, and I will refer to QuickBooks Online as QBO, because the answer is different. In many cases, it's different depending on whether or not you're on the desktop version or you're on QuickBooks Online. So, and I cannot answer questions about Xero, unfortunately. That's just not part of my world as of yet. I'm sure that the moment I get a client using Xero, I will become a Xero expert shortly thereafter. So I see no questions yet. This would be really boring if we get no questions. But somebody sent in a couple of questions yesterday in advance, one of which is, what is the holding account? So in QuickBooks Online, it does not have a transaction type called an item receipt. So when Fishbowl wrote the integration with QuickBooks Online, they created the quote-unquote holding account, which really should be named inventory accrual. So when operations receive the product, Fishbowl sends over a journal entry that debits inventory and credits holding or inventory accrual, and credits inventory accrual. Then when the bill is reconciled, Fishbowl sends over a bill which relieves the inventory accrual account, aka holdings, and posts the bill to accounts payable to be paid. Okay, so that was my only advanced question. I see no questions yet, guys. So you're just going to listen to me ramble. So I've got QuickBooks Desktop here. I have Fishbowl here. Aha. I see a question. Is there a way to set up a location so they can only be pulled for a certain customer sales orders? You can set up a location group to have that happen. That's not a feature of location. So I can set up a location group, and normally location groups are physical warehouses with different distance. Okay, so But you can have virtual location groups. So I can create a location group, and then once I have that location group, then I would take the sales order from that customer and I would tie it to the location group. Therefore, we only pull that location inventory. Okay? Okay. Did that answer the question? Oh, there's no way. I missed this in I need step-to-step instructions for RMAs from issuing the RMA to downloading into QuickBooks Online. Okay, so RMAs are optional, but they are a great way to keep track of statistics while you're getting product back. So step by step for an RMA, we're going to create a new one, pick a customer, and we can put an expiration date, so you can issue your customer an RMA number. And then when we have if we don't get the stuff back, the RMA goes ahead and expires. And now we're going to add our items to the RMA, and we can verify that we actually sold it to this customer or not. And seeing how this is a demo database, there's no guarantee there's any reality there. And now I can say how many are coming back. And then here I have different types of RMA depending on what I'm going to do. So I have a credit return. I have a replacement that allows me to ship the same thing back out to the customer on the same sales order. And I have substitution, which says, okay, they're going to send me back part A, and I'm going to send them part B. And then we have repair. I tend not to use the repair type. I have a different process for that. So right now we'll just do a straight credit return. And here's where we have we can have all these reasons for why the goods are coming back. And we can have notes that we took from the customer. So I have one client who's in the medical device business, and his issue list is very, very long. And he has custom fields so that he could answer all his quality control questions right here in the RMA. So now we have finish. And then we have the save button. And then this third button every place else in Fishbowl that says issue. Here it says return, just to be confusing. So now I hit the return button, and what it does is it gives me, it's going to create a linked sales order for this RMA. So let's say I'm going to give them, $1,500 return credit. And here I can take a percentage back as a restocking fee, or I can have a flat rate restocking fee. Okay, and I can call that here. All right, so now we have a linked sales order to this credit return. And we're going to come in here, and it is now waiting for this to be received. So this sales order is now in the system, the credit return sales order. And then we will have, a link to the receiving module. And then here, once we receive it, now that will fulfill this credit return sales order. And what will happen in QBO is you will get a credit memo for the sale and a journal entry to reverse the cost of goods sold. Okay.
Jeanne, real quickly, if I can interrupt, I do see some people might have some issues with the audio and they aren't able to hear you. Just to confirm, if you can hear Jeanne, can some of you just put that in the chat? I'm not sure if this is just pertaining to one user or if it's, so if you can hear me, that would be, if you can confirm you could hear us, that'd be great. If you can put in the chat, let me see. Jeanne, we also have a couple of polls to ask if you want to see how many of our audience members how long they've been using Fishbowl.
Sure, let's ask a question.
Okay. While we wait for people to confirm if they can hear us. Okay, if you go to actually, we will just, if you want to continue to the next question, I will take care of that after.
Okay, what?
Sorry,
Stephanie?
if you want to continue answering maybe one more question, I will ask the poll after.
Okay, so I have a question here called, can Fishbowl get sales history from QuickBooks? Okay, no, Fishbowl doesn't have a way to get sales history from QuickBooks. You can pull in when you've got this initial setup. There's a way here to pull in invoices for X number of days. And if your part numbers are exactly the same, what have you, you can do that, but they will just be open sales orders. They will not be fulfilled, therefore they will not show sales. However, I have been known to take QuickBooks data, sales data, and I have a utility program to import it into Fishbowl so that we can have QuickBooks sales history for comparative purposes. Okay? Okay. So, I hope that answers your question. We'll be happy to quote that for you. A coworker wants to know the best way to do an RMA in Fishbowl. We use the sales module currently. It seemed easier because we came across kitting issues. Okay. The RMA module can be used, and it will create a sales order. So you really are still using the sales order. The RMA is there so that we can give permission to the customer. We can have everyone know that, the operations know that it's coming back, and we can keep track of why our stuff is coming back. Okay. And now from Abby, why doesn't our Fishbowl inventory valuation matching our QBO valuation? That's usually a fun question. I answer this one every day, and it's always different. So I have a process that I go through to check for problems between Fishbowl and QuickBooks. Okay, most of the reasons that don't match have to do with humans, not the software. So the first thing I do when I have someone who's got a problem between Fishbowl and QuickBooks matching is I come in here and I look at the default account mapping. Okay? And I verify that the default account mapping is going where we need it to go. Then I look at the individual part account mapping, and I verify that. And if there are no problems with mapping causing our differences, then I usually come to the receiving screen and ask about how we deal with this screen. Okay? For the most part, we really want our bill date to be the same as our receive date. It's slightly different in QBO. The other thing you need to know about QBO is that if I find mapping problems here, then I need to also change them in QBO, because on products, Fishbowl goes ahead and creates a service item that has its own mapping in QBO. So any mapping problems I find here, I have to also go to QBO and fix. And so I'll be happy to help you find your difference. I mean, sometimes I've had people come in here and enter the bills in before we actually got the product. So now I have dollars in QuickBooks when I don't have inventory in Fishbowl, etc. So it's usually errors. I had one last month where there was a almost $1 million difference between Fishbowl and QuickBooks because the tax guy had made an adjusting journal entry. So it kind of depends, and I'd actually have to see your file to figure it out, okay? With regards to QBO and Fishbowl holding account, my Fishbowl post does not continuously use the holding account. Why? I would say that if I receive and reconcile at the same time, then there's no reason to use the holding account because we don't need to accrue it. We can just go ahead and post the bill to QBO. Okay? Is there a way to enter whole PO when receiving rather than each line item? Yes, there is, sir. I come here to this PO, it's a little small. I need a bigger PO. All right. Okay. Here we go, 2 lines. If you use this button up here, this has already been received. But this truck up here at the top left receives the whole purchase order, where this little truck over to the far right receives an individual line item balance. Okay? So when I hit this, it does everything at once. When I hit the one on the right, it does just the individual line item. I hope that helps. Okay, my inventory balance in Fishbowl compared to QBO is never the same. What might this be? It might be dates, it might be account mapping errors, it might be journal entries from tax accountants, it might be that we're putting bills into Fishbowl without receiving the inventory, okay? I got a kind of a top 10 list of what it can be. We have items we have on consignment from a vendor that are billed weekly as they pull them. How would you suggest we set this up? Good question, because I have an entire blog on that. Okay, and let's go find the blog post. Come on, website. Okay, blog, Fishbowl Inventory. Okay, so holding inventory on consignment. So if you look at this, read this up, Eric, and it will answer your questions. Essentially what I do is I create a contra account. So I'm going to bring all the inventory in. I'm going to receive it with its current cost, the cost the vendor is going to bill us, so that my costing layers in Fishbowl are right, and eventually my cost of goods sold are correct. But I have a contra account on the balance sheet. There's a credit balance account because we don't really own that inventory yet, so that we can manage it. Okay, so read up on this holding inventory on consignment, and if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. Okay, Sally said yes, thanks. I hope I just said something right. Is there an effective way to track fixed assets not in inventory so that we can see the asset with the associated value and attribute parts to it for repairs? Track fixed assets not in inventory so that we can see the asset with the associated value and attribute parts for repairs. We do have a capital equipment part type. I don't think it works really that well, but when it comes to associating repair parts, we can do that by going in here, and I can come in here and I can tie this to a customer job. So I can create part numbers for my job numbers for my different pieces of fixed asset. And as I use the parts, I can compare them here. But I would have to give that a thought because I've had very few people wanting to track fixed assets in Fishbowl. So I'm reserved the right to figure that one out. In the Fishbowl documentation, it states that all POs come from Fishbowl. What about POs for things other than inventory? Please clarify. Okay. So all the POs start in Fishbowl. Okay, we have two choices here. We have 8 different part types that we can choose. Okay, so I can cut a purchase order for service. I can cut a purchase order for non-inventory parts and for internal use parts. Okay, or I can choose to use QuickBooks purchase orders if I'm buying a piece of capital equipment or what have you. Okay, so you have choices as to whether or not you do it all in Fishbowl, or you want to do, I'm buying a machine or I'm buying a refrigerator. I can use the PO in QuickBooks instead. But you want everything involving your inventory to be in Fishbowl. Okay. How do you change the price of an item on a PO after it's been received? All right. So over here, let's just start with a PO. Okay. So new. All right. And I'm going to put him in at $5. Okay. And I'm going to issue that. Now I'm going to receive it. Okay. And now this is where operations end and accounting takes over. So accounting comes in here and hits the reconcile button up here, enters in the bill number, enters in the bill date, which we prefer to be the same day we're doing it. Okay. And now this is where, if the bill is different than the purchase order, this is where I can change it. Okay. So accounts payable's job is to make sure that the vendor bill, they bill us for the right quantity, they bill us for the right cost. It is their world. They own this screen. Okay. Then in here, we can add other things that were not on the PO. Okay. Like freight in. And I like 5s today. Maybe it's because it's Cinco de Mayo. And then, so now I can add my freight to the vendor bill. So it's better to use your freight here than it is to put freight on the face of the purchase order. Next. And now I can choose to add that $5 of freight to the cost of this part or not. So if I don't want to add it to the cost of the part, I want to expense it, I would go here to do not calculate. Otherwise, I'm going to put it on my part. Next, voila, I now have landed costs of $10.25 for this part, and it's been added to the vendor bill for a bill total of $10.25. So that was even more than you asked. Okay. All right. Can you set up a minimum purchase quantity by product rather than vendor? Okay. So one of the ways I would do that is over here under part. I would come here and under my vendor, this one has no vendor attached to it. All right, grab the vendor, last cost, and here is where I would put the vendor unit of measure, as the case before. That way, I pretty much have to buy in the vendor's unit of measure. So that can also be and I also have a minimum quantity column right here, or I have to buy 500. So it's hiding from you. Okay. Okay, this is a nice long one from Lori. Okay, when we are trying to create work order for a finished good and issue it, there are parts that are short. We have been manually adding the parts so we can complete the finished work order. However, our accounting partner doesn't like it because it creates a credit in expense. Is there another way to complete the finished good work order without inventory to push it through? So this is a multi-layered problem, okay? So if I really have the parts in front of me and the work order is calling for them, then we need to add the inventory, because if we complete the work order short without all the materials, then we're going to mess up the value, the costing layer for the finished good. But as a general rule, cycle counts mean I don't have good control over my inventory. It's an oops. And I have a philosophy there should be only one or two people able to do cycle counts, and those people should have, some kind of compensation or other skin in the game associated with the accuracy of inventory. So I can understand accounting's problem. Nobody likes the credits in QuickBooks inventory, but what we really should be doing is that we have a whole process problem if this is a frequent occurrence. So we need to go find out why we don't have the inventory in inventory, why the parts are not there. Are we slow in receiving our stuff off of purchase orders? Are we not processing the work orders that are consuming our parts properly? We need to solve the process problem so we don't have that as an issue. Okay? Okay, high level. What does the process to integrate Fishbowl and QuickBooks look like? For example, what should we do to prepare? Okay, so the first thing we should do is we should make sure we set up our Fishbowl file properly. We should make sure that we've done our mappings properly. Okay, so I have these default mappings, and so this is the accounts it's going to hit by part type if it's not specifically mapped. So, but we have the ability to specifically map parts right here. Okay, so I can send this part somewhere else. I can send it automobile expense if I wanted to, which would be a terrible thing. But you have the ability to individually map parts. So you're going to want those things. You're going to want your mappings to be good. You're also, if you're getting ready to go live, you're going to want to make sure that the value in QuickBooks and your initial value in Fishbowl match, or if they don't match, you'd be willing to write off the difference, okay, before you integrate. And then the actual accounting integration is just this really simple configuration, all right? So you want to prepare your mapping. You want to make sure the value of Fishbowl matches the value of QuickBooks before you do any transaction, okay? We receive 100 pieces and then receive a bill for only 20. We have not been able to partially reconcile. I get that, okay? It seems strange. Usually, your vendor's going to send a bill when they ship. So if they're sending a bill for 20, it leads me to believe that maybe receiving didn't receive each shipment individually. They just kind of waited and received the whole thing at once. I would probably go talk to my receiving people about how they're doing that, because that's a very unusual event. Okay, I am now through the questions that were asked in the first 10 minutes. So I will keep on going, and all the next questions are, yes, I can hear, yay! I can hear. Okay. All right, so we have somebody's been using 3 years, can hear clearly, yes. These are not really questions. Okay, why is there always an integration issue when updating Fishbowl with plugin versions identified? How can you verify if there has been any updating issues? Gee, Harold, you know, that is truly a Fishbowl question. I mean, you know, in general, I don't like to be their beta tester, so I usually wait, you know, or usually one release back. But when we've got plugins, we have the plugin levels, and if we have a version that needs to be updated, it will tell you on the screen that you need to update the plugin. So, you know, and we would just, you know, I don't know. You probably should read the release notes and know why they're upgrading certain things before you take the version. And double check to see if there's a problem. Calling them or emailing the plugin teams and asking them certain questions might be preventative. Okay. Okay, I can hear. All right. Okay, mobile check tools in the warehouse to support inventory moves to new locations. Are they functional? What are the limitations? Sally, I am going to assume that you were talking about Fishbowl Go. And Fishbowl Go can run on Android devices. They can run on iOS. And it also a version that runs on the big expensive guns. You can use those, you know, probably the least expensive way of going about it is to get a ruggedized Android tablet, and you can move it from one location to another. The one thing, I mean, in Fishbowl Go, I can move product, I can count product, I can receive against a PRO, I can ship against an SO, I can pack. I can't create any forms, okay? I can't create a sales order, I can't create a purchase order, but I can transact against them. The big limitation here is you want to make sure that you have all your locations well labeled with a nice big barcode that's crisp and clear, and you want to make sure all your product is well labeled, especially if you're doing anything like serial tracking or lot control. You want to have those barcoded as well. Okay, I hope that helps. Okay, this is not really, all right, so this is not an RMA issue. Okay, the question is, why does my RMA in QBO show up as a deposit? It's not the RMA. What it is the payment. So what has happened is somebody has come into your sales order, and this is a credit return sales order, and they've come up to the little payment button, and they have said, we have refunded this payment, okay? So I'm going to process this this does not, even if I had an active merchant services account linked with Fishbowl, which I do not, this is going to send that journal entry over to QBO and QBD that is going to debit accounts receivable, which would offset the credit memo, and credit whatever the payment account is for this payment method. Undeposited funds, credit card clearing, etc. Payments are their own topic, and I would love to do a webinar just on payments one of these days. I know the card's not valid. Okay, we're going to not try that because we don't have the right credit card. I hope that answers your question, because it's not the RMA. Somebody is refunding a payment in Fishbowl. Okay? Okay, this is interesting. What is the best way to set up a company credit card used to pay bills in QuickBooks? And then since the payments deduct from the bank account, how can you show these payments? So that is a QuickBooks only question. So right here, we have an account type called credit card, all right? Chart of accounts, we have credit card. And it's its own chart of accounts. And when I go in here to vendor to pay bills, one of my choices to pay a bill is to use a credit card. In this case, it's American Express. And then I can pay that bill, and that amount will be in the register, so that when I get the actual credit card bill, I can just mark that off as yes, it's there. And when I pay the credit card bill, I will relieve the credit card account in credit cash. So the easiest way, and the really great thing about credit cards is you can download them. You can set them up for online banking, and the charges all come in and the payments all come in, and it's a beautiful thing. Okay, I hope that helps. Does Fishbowl keep track of inventory adjustments? It certainly does. Right here, I even have a Fishbowl report that shows the adjustments, and you have to understand that this is a demo file. So we've got all these wonderful adjustments that are not posted or been posted, and you can keep track of that here. So there are two kinds of inventory adjustments. Actually, there's three. There is a cycle count. There is an add inventory. There is a scrap, and there is a cost adjustment, and that actually totals 4. So I highly recommend you guys read my UGG versus OOPS, which is my, okay, what you can do to UGG versus OOPS. I'm sorry, I started reading the next question. As a new company, okay, can the data can be put into Fishbowl? I have a utility that does that. I will be happy to discuss that with you at another time. Okay. Okay. How do you return for a kit on a Fishbowl sales order? Right now, I do it as individual items. I've never really thought about returning a kit, but I'm sure I have a kit somewhere. So, okay, adventure kit. And so now, okay. Yep, I think individual items is what you're going to do. Because it's not being very, it won't let me change this to a credit return. So, but let's see, delete the top items. But I can use the kit item here, to bring all the items in the kit onto the sales order, I can delete the kit header, and then it's easy for me to just change the individual types to credit return. How's that work for you? I hope it works well. We tried to get this so that we could have two-way communication, that we could talk to you as we answered your questions, but the license didn't come through from GoToWebinar quite soon enough. So next one, we are going to be able to unmute you guys and have real conversation. How is a kit price able to be displayed on the sales order invoice without expanding the detail of the kit? Well, when we come over here to materials product, okay, and advanced search, I want a kit. Okay. With emergency kit. So I've got my emergency kit, and then somewhere it says display type show all. That shows you all the individual items in the kit. And if we want to see just the header, we say only show header right here in the setup of the kit under the product module. Okay? I hope you like that. What is the difference between kits and bombs? Oh, I got a standard answer for this one. Okay, so, John, a kit is something that gets assembled or gets packed by shipping in the warehouse, okay, versus a bill of material and manufacturing order, which goes and it changes. We grab a whole bunch of parts and make a new thing. So my classic kit versus bomb is I had a client once upon a time called Architectural Mailboxes, and on their invoice was one mailbox kit, right? And on the packing slip, what went to the warehouse, the guys that went and grabbed the pretty little mailbox, it was in this size package, and then they went and grabbed the pole, which was in this size package, and that was the kit. Because we never going to put, we're going to ship those two boxes separately, but to the same customer as one sale as a kit. Okay? Versus I'm going to build something and put it on the shelf, and so when I sell it, I go grab it off the shelf and ship it. All right? I hope that answers. Okay, so we now have to go into detailed landed cost. So this is from Chan again. Where can we assign the ocean ship cost and duty rate to certain PO, then calculate the landed cost for each SKU? Well, we start with, when we're dealing with international freight, okay, we usually, our ocean costs and our duties are usually billed to us by a separate vendor than our vendor that we are purchasing the goods from. So first place we start with parts. And for all of those things that are going to be billed by a third-party vendor, we need to have them set up as a part type shipping, okay? So I have customs duty, freight in, and shipping, okay? So now I come into my receiving and I grab something. I need a bigger one. There we go. So I'm going to reconcile this and okay, my bill date is today. Okay, next. Okay. I'm going to get rid of that purchasing variance guy. Okay, so reconcile, and I'm only going to reconcile the things I can reconcile. All right, reference number, and then here's my bill date. Here was January 26, 2017. Next. So now I'm going to add my freight in, okay? And a container usually runs about $2,500, okay? So here's my freight in. I was too busy. And then right here, I have this little tiny check mark. We have a joke. The most important things in the software are these little tiny check marks. So I uncheck this so that it doesn't go to my vendor's bill. It's going to go to what I set up as an accrued landed cost account. Okay. So there I've got my ocean freight in. And now I'm going to add my customs duty. All right. Now I'll make that 500. And I'm going to uncheck the box, add item to vendor bill. And I go next. And now it's asking me the inbound freight on purchases, which of these line items do I want to land the cost to? So I can land this, probably what makes the most sense is either by size or weight when I'm dealing with ocean freight. Okay. And then next, it says, okay, now I have customs duty of 500. So I can pretend that this, let's just pretend this one doesn't have duty on it. So I'm only going to allocate that landed cost amongst these two SKUs, okay, based upon their cost. So now my summary of my receipt here is I've got my landed cost for each SKU, and then I have this $3,000 is billed. So this is my bill total, which was a $0 sales PO, and this is my total not on the bill. And when that goes over to QuickBooks, this $3,000 will hit the accrued landed cost account, my personal favorite. And then when we get that bill from the freight forwarder, we post it to the accrued landed cost account. Okay. That's what happens with demo files. Okay. So we use FIFO inventory. If I want a valuation report as of 4/30/2020, as of today, which report would provide this information accurately? There is no such report. Okay. The structure of Fishbowl does not give us the breadcrumbs we need to get you an accurate valuation report for any other moment other than now, and it doesn't matter if it's FIFO, LIFO, average, or standard, okay? So what I do for all of my clients is I set up here on a schedule a report called D-Value, because I'm just not into being creative. And what I do is I have a daily valuation report scheduled. The report I use mostly is the asset valuation by account, okay? And then I format it for exporting, okay? And then I run it late at night. So the date on the report will be the same as my day's activity. And those will sit there and be saved to CSV, and they'll be there when you need them, okay? It's a wonderful thing. And so the other choice, if you really need 430 inventory right now, is to put Fishbowl on a standalone laptop and go get the daily backup, which should also be scheduled and running every night, and restore the backup and get your valuation reports. But you'll live much happier if you go ahead and set up a nightly valuation report to run, okay? Okay. Eric, the cost may change as they are billed at market. Eric, that is why when we're here and we're doing Reconcile, accounting can change the cost. okay, because we know the PO cost may or may not be right, so accounting would go ahead and just do that during the reconcile. Okay, here's my buddy Harold again. Okay, so when I hit this reconcile button, so this is Harold's question. Can you clear up the issues around supply consumption before PO reconciliation? So you see these bright yellow triangles with the exclamation marks. That means we've used up that inventory and we can no longer land cost to it, nor can we change the value, the build value, okay? So what I do in that situation is I come here and I have a cute little part number called purchasing variance. Okay, so I can, my purchasing variance account, I can subtract or I can add to my vendor bill. I can make that adjustment, all right? And I have a separate account over in QuickBooks for purchasing variance. And so we're hoping that the purchasing variance account just has mini money in it. If it's a big discrepancy, then we're going to have to go through this big, long cycle count stuff in, send it back, pretend to send it back to the vendor, create a new PO, bring it in again, reconcile the bill, and then cycle count it out, which for mini money is way too much work. But for big money, you know, it's worth doing it so we get the right costing layer. All right, next. Hi, Jeremy. We currently sell products to some of the same people that we purchase items from. We seem to have to build a separate customer and vendor profile. Is there a way to merge them? Absolutely not, as long as you're using QuickBooks. QuickBooks requires that I can only have one AR and one AP account per transaction. It requires that my customer name be unique, and it cannot be used in any other list with the exact same name. So you'll always have a separate customer and a separate vendor. Now, there's cute little ways once we're over in QuickBooks to use a clearing account so that we can net whether we're paying them or they're paying us. But from a system design standpoint, that is the way QuickBooks is designed. Therefore, Fishbowl follows QuickBooks rules because Fishbowl was designed to work with QuickBooks. Wow. I hope I'm going through these fast enough.
You have about 7 minutes till the webinar is at the 1 hour mark.
Well, maybe it'll just because it says it's an hour, maybe it'll let me keep talking. Okay, folks, poll question. Do you want me to keep talking or you want me to bail it at 11 o'clock high? Oh, you have to ask that question, Stephanie.
Okay, yes, I'll create a poll for that.
And so far, we've only lost one person from the beginning. If the inventory is moved from the location you receive it to, you can't change the cost when you reconcile. How do you keep it from being moved until you reconcile when ops is receiving and accounting is reconciling? Actually, Sally, it's more than a move that creates this. In order to create this in my demo file, so I could do this on do a YouTube video for it, it wasn't a move that gave me my yellow triangle and exclamation mark. It was consumption in a manufacturing order that made it too complicated and gave me the yellow triangle. So obviously you can talk it depends on your nature of your business. You can create receiving as a lock location where they can't use it until somebody releases it, moves it out of the lock location. But that's going to be a negotiation with operations, because if they really need to get something out the door, they're going to really need to get something out the door. So, accounting's going to take second tier on that one. But if it's a small dollar amount, I highly recommend setting up the purchasing variance part number and account in QuickBooks. Harold, no, I have not looked at the new audit trail functionality. But, it could be on my list of things to do. In quarantine, it seems like I have all kinds of time to research things I didn't have before. Okay, I might have missed the answer, but what if you don't receive the invoice for freight for several days after you receive the inventory, i.e. you've already had the inventory in Fishbowl without the landed cost? Okay, as long as we haven't used it up and gotten ourselves that big yellow triangle, it's not a problem. We'll be able to land the cost. If you have a freight forwarder that's notorious about sending you their bills, then I would, we usually know how much a container is going to cost, and we usually know pretty much how much a duties are going to be, because they're pretty constant. So my answer is, we're going to do our best guess. We're going to land based upon our best guess. And then over in QuickBooks, if we're off by $1.95, we're going to write it off to, landed cost variance, which is another one of my recommended QuickBooks accounts.
Okay, I'm launching the poll if we should continue after the 11 o'clock Pacific time hour. So here we go.
Okay. Now, for Eric, right here, when we go to the face of the purchase order, okay, and we're going to go new.
Hold on, Jeanne, just 1 second. And we're closing the poll.
Okay. So, Eric, you see this little green button over here? If I click that button, it lets me put a kit on a purchase order. Okay, I think that should make you happy. Okay, the inventory asset totals in QuickBooks. There's no calculation happening in QuickBooks. QuickBooks is strictly a dollar value control account. So whatever the cost is in Fishbowl, whether it be base cost or landed cost, that will be the dollars sent to QuickBooks. Okay, and okay. Okay, this is another PO, freight bill, and timing difference. I think I've answered that one, Paul. If not to your satisfaction, you're welcome to give me a ring directly. I will be happy to show you how to map an individual part in Fishbowl. Chan, part number here. So here's my customs duty. And so my part accounts are right here under my part master. And I come here and I select my accounts. So that's all that we need to do. So shipping type part numbers have 3 accounts. Inventory type part numbers have 4 accounts unless you're using standard cost. There's a 5th account for standard cost, which is the cost variance account. And then the sales account is mapped separately here under the product, okay? So these are all kits, but it still should have, there's an income account right there, all right?
All right, so 80% of the people who voted said let's keep going. So the remaining people, if you can't stay, no harm done. We understand. Thank you for joining us, but we're going to go ahead and keep going, and Jeanne's going to keep answering some of your questions.
Yeah, I'm only up to the questions asked as of 10:30. So don't ask any more, add any more questions to the queue, because at some point I'll run out of voice. But okay. I'm having a problem with inventory location. When I run out of an item and the inventory location disappears, how do I set up inventory so I know where the kit item belongs in the warehouse? That is so simple. I'm glad you asked. So I'm going to come back over here to part. And right here, we have default locations. So I tell it, this one belongs in this aisle and location when in my Salt Lake City warehouse, and it will know to go there. When you receive it, it will actually suggest receiving it to that location for you. Okay? And that was for Raylene. Okay. Amy, I've already answered the one about how the kit gets displayed on the sales order. It's a cute little box over here under the product. Okay, we are using QuickBooks Enterprise. We run into Fishbowl connectivity issue on a random basis. A message box on the QBDB server location says we need to buy QB. The solution at this time is to log into QB and what computer and it works. But this is a secure server. All right, so gang, I don't know why. I'm an Intuit reseller. I use Enterprise. They give me 10 user license of Enterprise every year because I'm a reseller. And you know what? Occasionally, my QuickBooks tells me that I need to buy QuickBooks. And it's a glitch with Intuit. It has nothing to do with Fishbowl. But, you know, we can always submit that to Intuit as a bug and see what they're doing about it. Okay? All right. Sorry. One further clarification on kits versus BOM, which allows a sale of all or just one component. Okay. John has left, but you get a bill of materials. You're selling the whole kit and caboodle. A kit is going to put everything on there. You can actually not pick everything, and you know. Okay, our auditors are requesting to see the cost for subassembly. They are built internally. For a few subassemblies, I could pull the subassembly part number up under inventory and look at the cost tab. However, some it doesn't show up. Is this due to FIFO inventory? Is there no on-hand quantities? Blah, 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 blah. All right, so I shouldn't have said blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to show you where you can get your subassembly costs. And now I get to brag about one of my reports. So I come over here to reports. And that's not reports. The reports module. And this magic report right here. Okay. Costing layers with transaction source. So I'm checking the 3 kinds of transactions that would come and create a costing layer. And I'm going to say all, especially since this is a historical database, you know. And it is going to show me the actual cost as it comes off of, so I can look up the part number and I can go see the costing layer. Your auditors are going to want this report to check not only the subassembly costs, but to check your purchase prices and your finished good costs. So this is one of a set of 8 reports that we sell normally for $500, and right now that's on sale for $450 for the whole package. So we can make auditors really happy with this. We use manufacturing orders to consume samples to customers and push the cost to the correct QuickBooks account. Is there a way to do this on a sales order instead of have to push the correct QuickBooks account? Okay, Sally, what I do for customer samples is I use class tracking because we only get one cost of goods sold account per part number. Okay, so on my sales order, if I have, let's see if I have a sample part. I have a sample size here. What I would do is I would give it a class tracking that said that it was, I'm going to say it's extended warranty right now because I don't have a class set up for marketing samples. But then after it's in QuickBooks at the end of the month, I can run my P&L by class, and I can grab the stuff that's in marketing samples, and I can make a reclass journal entry from cost of goods sold to marketing samples, and that will be that'll get it in the right spot. All right. So RMA replacement. How do you enter? Currently, we enter both the return and the replacement on the same RMA. This creates the same SO number for both the shipment and the return. Is there a better way to enter these? Actually, that's the way I like entering them. It'll also allow you to, if you have the module option selected, allow cross shipping. You can go ahead and send the replacement before you get the return product actually sent back. Okay, do you know of a way to get Fishbowl to attach a date to a tag that would not change as the product is moved to another location? Not a date to the tag, but if you wanted to date your inventory, you could set up a custom tracking over here under materials, okay? And under details, we have all these different trackings. I could create a new tracking, okay? And I could add one to be my purchase date so I could age my inventory. And that date will be a tracking date just like a lot number or a serial number, and it'll be required on all transactions, and you will have the date you want. I'm assuming that what you're trying to do. Okay. So, all right. I heard if a lot number tracking is turned on for a product that the lot could be scrapped at the correct costing layer, even if the current costing layer is a different cost. Is this true? No, it's not. Especially since I believe you mentioned you're on FIFO. You don't have a choice. It's gonna scrap at whatever the current costing layer is. Okay. We're gonna skip John because he left. Okay. So, oh wow, we're getting to the end of the questions. Hallelujah. So Patricia Cantrell. Okay. So the entries that are coming from an RMA is essentially going to reverse the sale. So I'm going to get a credit memo to accounts receivable, and I'm going to get a debit to sales. Okay. Then I'm going to have a journal entry that will credit cost of goods sold and put it back into inventory. So those are the QuickBooks Online strictly from an RMA or a credit return sales order. The other piece is if they come into the sales order and they go through and they say, we're going to reverse the payment, that will become a debit to accounts receivable and a credit to whatever the deposit account is. In this case, deposited funds. Okay? And everybody's saying, can you show me an example of a demand and supply report and see where the supply good gap is? Or is this, I'm not sure what your question is. So Chan, I'm going to have to talk to you in person to figure out exactly what it is you're trying to get, but that could happen. And then, does your firm provide consulting service to design a better workflow for a new onboard company? You bet. That's what we do. We solve fishbowl problems. Okay. Okay, this is a question. Can bombs be converted to kits? Not really. You could export it as a bomb and then rechange the columns and bring it in as import as a kit, but you got to change part numbers and things like that. Sally, lot number tracking for inventory, best way to successfully use this feature. Well, Fishbowl, if you put it on lot tracking, it's going to insist on lot tracking. So we're going to, I don't know if there's a best practices. Once you have it on lot tracking, it's going to give you FDA compliant lot tracking. So I'm not sure if there's really a better or worse way to do it. So, all right. So can we show kit number on PO, not just individual items? I'm almost happy. Okay, Eric. All right, here we go. So let's go see our kit. First, let's look at our kit and see how we set it up. All right. So my emergency kit says only show header. So I'm going to save that because I only want to see the header on the PO, the SO. And let's see if that carries through to the PO because I don't know off the top of my head. Kit. Next. K. Emergency kit. Next. Finish. Okay, that was not the key. I'm afraid you're going to have to remain just almost happy. But I'm doing that for another client because they are buying it based upon the kit number. So, I'll think about that one. Okay, I think I made it to the end of the questions. Okay, and I think that Stephanie's got a few poll questions. Stephanie, it's your turn.
Right, thank you. Okay, so I do have a couple of polls. More just to understand our audience, and if you can participate, that'd be great. The first being, it might be an obvious one, but we don't know. Some of you may not be Fishbowl users, and you really just want to see what are some questions some Fishbowl users have before even considering Fishbowl. So that's the first question. Are you a Fishbowl user? Okay, so hopefully you are taking that time to answer just a quick yes or no question.
Thank you, Harold.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for answering that. And then my next question is, How long have you been using Fishbowl? If you are a Fishbowl user, of course. I did see there was a few people who answered they're not. So we would love to speak with you after the webinar, see if you have any additional questions for us. Also, for some of you who had your, or most all you had your questions answered, but we will be sending this out to you, and I will even go a step further to highlight at which point the questions were answered. That way you can get the time point of that, so you don't have to, if you don't want to go through the whole webinar again, we'll just have those timestamps for you.
That's
Okay.
really nice of you, Stephanie.
Thank you very
I
much.
didn't know you could do that.
I will be doing it. Okay, so next question. The next question is, which QuickBooks software do you use? Like Jeanne said, there's different functionalities within QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. So we really want to understand also more about that from our audience. Perfect. Thank you so much for answering. Jeanne, do you want me to ask the last question, which is please indicate the biggest pain point in Fishbowl?
Sure, why not?
All right.
Those people who stuck with us might as well tell us what they think. Also, we'd like to point you out to, we now have a YouTube channel. Under quarantine, I have finally done what I was supposed to be doing all these years. I'm doing my marketing and promotion. And we also have, as I showed you, lots of very pointed blogs with respect to Fishbowl, most of which are highly opinionated. As you may have gathered from my presentation today, I do have opinions.
Right, we have about 7 new YouTube videos on our YouTube channel, so we would love for you to go subscribe. They're all very informative, and you get to hear Jeanne be so witty and funny. I love hearing her on there when I'm editing. I keep in the funny parts especially. And then also, we'll be having more soon. She has me editing a lot, and I'm enjoying it, every part of it.
Okay, so Eric, why do we have an orange triangle? I don't know. This is the first time we've used the software, so, and next time we'll be able to unmute you so we can have a two-way dialogue.
Yeah,
All
I think
right?
that'd be better. Okay, so I'm all done with the polls. Jeanne, you can say their goodbyes.
So, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for attending. I hope you gained some information that was usable. Have a nice day, and enjoy Cinco de Mayo in quarantine.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Okay, fellow organizer, how do I exit